Most people talk to AI like they're Googling something. They type vague questions, get mid-answers, and walk away thinking that AI is overhyped. But the people that are getting insane results, well, they're using patterns. These are repeatable frameworks that work every single time, no matter what kind of tool you're using. So today, I'm going to show you the only prompt patterns that actually matter, and I'm going to prove each one to you by building something real, live, and on camera. Now, the prompts that I'm going to show you, I'm going to run inside of GenSpark. And the reason for that is that these guys went from a concept to $155 million in annual run rate in just 10 months, and you may have actually seen them in their recent Super Bowl commercial just a few weeks ago. Now, instead of paying for ChatGPT, Claude, Midjourney, Canva, and 10 other tools separately, GenSpark is one subscription, one interface, and it actually does the work for you. As you can see here, GenSpark is a full AI workspace that has access to custom agents, slides, sheets, docs, developer, and all kinds of other features. It even has its own AI drive where it can automatically download, store, sort, and utilize files for you. Now for 2026, it also offers unlimited AI chat and image generation, but regardless, the prompt patterns that I'm going to show you here will work inside of any AI agent. Let's dive in. So obviously there are a lot of patterns you can apply in prompts, but in this video, I'm going to go through 4 that in my opinion are the most important. Now that is the speed layer, the personal handoff, the input flip, and the constraint box. I kind of just made up a few of these titles, so take it for what it is. But the point is these are repeatable frameworks that you can follow in any AI tool. Now, before we get into that, I do quickly want to go through some general best practices and some knowledge that you should have before you just start prompting AI models. These are things that apply in any prompt in pretty much any tool, so let's get into them. So the first thing is that placement matters. What I mean by that is the order in which content appears in the prompt is going to have a massive difference on the output that you get. Typically speaking, the most important content or the instruction that you're giving should be at the beginning or very end of the prompt. You also should use separators or delimiters to make sure that you can distinguish what is an instruction and what is additional content or context that you want it to read in. So if there's something important you want the model to do, don't dump it in the middle. Next is that AI doesn't read, it predicts. Now, what I mean by that is that while it seems like AI is going to read through all of your content, reason through it, effectively what it's doing is it's trying to predict the next string of text that it should output. So just keep that in mind, because if you understand that really these models just act like a text prediction system, you can prompt it in such a way that it predicts the text more reliably as opposed to asking it something, right? Or giving it kind of vague instructions. Next is that structure beats length. A lot of people think if they just give a massive amount of content to an AI model that it will perform really well. That's not the case, especially if that content isn't structured. Try to provide markdown-like structure where you have titles, you have separators, you have bullet points, you have numbered lists. The more structure you give to your prompts and the more that you put it into separate sections, the easier it's going to be for the model to understand. The next important thing is that when possible, always give examples to the LLM. If you can provide an example of what you're looking for, it can much more easily predict that. So even just having one example can really change the output you're going to get. Next, make sure that you tell it what not to do. So a lot of people tell the LLM to do something, but they don't introduce any constraints or any things it shouldn't do. In fact, the best prompters are always telling the LLM very detailed what it shouldn't do so it can focus at the task at hand. For example, don't go and search the internet for this. Don't give me any M dashes in the response, right? Whatever it is that you're looking for. And then lastly, iterate, don't restart. So if you have a prompt that's almost giving you the correct result, don't completely scrap it, iterate on the prompt and just slightly improve it, because small changes can make a massive difference. So with that said, let's get into the 4 patterns, which generally speaking are going to embody all of these principles that I went through. Now, the first pattern to go over here is what I call the speed layer. Now, the general concept here is that you want to work as quickly as you can, and to do that, you should be using voice to interact with your agents as opposed to just using text. The idea is that we want to give as much information as quickly as we can and then iterate on the prompt multiple times rather than trying to be perfect the first time and typing everything in manually. The faster that you can get the AI agent to run, the quicker you can iterate and see what's working, what's not working. So make sure you're using your voice, where you can be 4, 5, 10 times faster than typing it on your keyboard. Now, inside of GenSpark, they do actually have a new tool they just released called Speakly that allows you to directly use your voice and then have formatted prompts for you. So that's what I'm going to be using. It's free to try out if you want it. You can use any dictation tool that you'd like. So inside of here, I'm just going to give you a quick example of when I would do something like this. Okay, so let's just start dictating. Hey, so I want to come up with a new video idea. I want the video idea to be on multiple different prompt patterns. I don't want them to be too basic, but I don't want them to be too complicated. This video is going to go live on my Tech with Tim YouTube channel. I want it to probably be maximum 20 minutes, and I want it to showcase different realistic use cases so I can see what's a good example, what's a bad example, and how can we apply these patterns consistently. And you get the idea. I'm just going to ramble and just dump my thoughts whenever it comes to my head. And you'll see in the case of Speakly here, it actually formats my prompt so that it removes all of the repetitive stuff and just gives me a concise overview of what I wanted to ask. So then I can just dump this to the model and it can give me the results. So just based on that prompt, which is obviously faster than me typing it out manually, you can see that we get kind of an entire script here showing up in the chats. Now, because speed is a core part of this pattern, rather than me spending a bunch of time coming up with a prompt and guessing what the LLM wants, what I like to do is describe briefly what I'm looking for and then tell the LLM to ask me what it is that I need. So I'll show you an example. Hey, I want to draft a YouTube video script for the 5 best prompt patterns. Ask me any questions you need to clarify and get the information required to generate this script such that it would fit in like a 10-minute long YouTube video. Okay, and again, you can see it's kind of already structured the prompt for me. So we already have that layer where it's like enhancing what I'm saying before it even gets to the model. But then now that I'm doing this, the model can ask me those questions and then I can reply to it. And by doing this, you leave kind of no stone unturned and you're not having the model do something based on limited information. It's actually able to take what it requires and then generate the output. So again, kind of a core part of this pattern. So I'm not going to answer these, but the point is, what 5 prompt patterns, target audience, what AI tools. These are a lot of things that I probably wouldn't have included by default, and they're going to be annoying to answer, but because I can just speak to the model, it's going to be very fast and it can structure the prompt for me and include these necessary details. And just to give you an idea of how useful this can actually be for you, I'm just inside of the inbox here in GenSpark, and let's say for some reason I wanted to reply to an email. So I don't want to leak any real email, but here's one, right? Some random email from some guy trying to sell me something. So let's just go here and I'll just tell it, hey, reply to this in a professional tone that kindly says that I'm not interested. Okay, and then it's just going to write the email for me directly inside of here. And there you go. You can see very quickly I can just get a response, shoot it out, rather than me having to say, okay, come up with a really interesting prompt, whatever. Just speak into it. It gives me the result, and then I can send this, and we're good to go. Now, just one other quick example, because this is super cool. Let's say I wanted to write a new email. So let's press a new email here, and let's send it to, for example, my girlfriend. I'm not going to actually write her email, but let's say we're going to send it to her. Now, what I could do, because she actually mostly speaks Indonesian, is I could use Speakly to translate something into another language. So what I can do is press a custom keyboard shortcut that I set up that's going to translate any text that I write to Indonesian. Hey, I really miss you. I'm looking forward to seeing you soon. I hope that you had a safe flight. Message me when you land. Okay, and what I did there is I just pressed a different button on my keyboard, and now we'll see in a second that it gives me all of this in Indonesian. And if we have a look at Speakly here, you can see I made my own custom instruction, translate to Indonesian. And when I enable that, anytime I speak something here, it will automatically translate it for me. So the next pattern to go through is what I'm calling the persona handoff. Now, the general concept is that instead of asking AI a question, you need to give it a role with specific expertise and tell it to take ownership of a task. Now, the reason this works is that AI outputs dramatically improve when you define who it is supposed to be, not just what you want. So the pattern looks something like this. You are a specific expert role with specific experience. Your job is to specific tasks. Here's the context, right? Deliver whatever it is that you're looking for. So you're being extremely clear, you're setting the tone, and more importantly, you're telling the AI who it is supposed to be. Because when you change the persona, you'll get a massively different result. For example, let's say I do something like make a deck for my startup, right? Okay, I can tell it to do that, but that's going to be super basic. Maybe it can pull some context, but I'm not really going to get any kind of result. A much better prompt will be the following. So I'm just making it a bit larger so you can see, but you are a pitch deck consultant who has helped 50 startups raise Series A funding, create a 12-slide investor pitch deck for my AI-powered fitness app that targets busy professionals, include market-sized data, competitor analysis, and a clear revenue model, right? Make it visually clean and story-driven. Now I'm telling it who it is, the experience it's had, the exact task I want it to complete, and what I want it to deliver at the end. So let's actually run this and see what will happen if we do this inside of GenSpark. So it's just wrapping up the deck right now, but I'll just give you kind of a quick scroll through of what it's been able to create here. Again, it followed it, gave us 12 slides as I asked for. Going through, it looks very much like a pitch deck that I would expect to see. And you get the idea. So obviously there's a bunch of stuff that it can't insert because it doesn't know all the stats. but it's given us the template. And overall, I would say this is a significantly better deck than what we would get if we used the bad prompt I showed you before. So this leads us now to pattern number 3, which is the input flip. Now, the general concept here is that instead of describing what you want from scratch, you should always give AI a reference input and tell it to transform, replicate, or improve the reference. Now, this works because AI is dramatically better at transforming existing things than creating something from nothing. So when you give it some kind of demo, example, template, reference, whatever, you remove a lot of the ambiguity. So here's just a really quick example of what you could do. You can say something like, here is, my reference example existing thing. I want you to transform, replicate, style, improve, reverse engineer, whatever, into this new thing, and then keep whatever it is you want to keep and change whatever it is that you want to change. Now, I know this sounds really simple, but again, when you use this kind of format and this kind of template, you get a much better result. Let me show you an example. So let's actually run this one. Let's say I try to do design me a brand identity for my coffee shop, right? And by the way, this is how most people use AI. I know you guys are a bit more technical, but they do something like this. Let's see the result that we get here from that. All right, so it's finished doing the designs here. Now, I gotta be honest, it actually looks pretty decent considering literally we just told it like, yeah, just make a coffee shop design, and this is kind of what it gave us. However, of course, it's pretty generic. It's not really that unique. It seems like some of the logos and stuff that it has are a little bit different, or maybe it's giving us like some different versions. Either way, we didn't really give it anything to go off of, so it just came up with something random. So instead, now let's do a better prompt that uses what I was talking about before. All right, so I changed the prompt now to effectively say, here's a bunch of examples. I want you to do a complete, brand identity, logo, concepts, whatever. Keep it feeling premium but approachable. I then attached a few links, and the example that I'm using here is actually my friend Anya's. You guys might know Anya from YouTube. She has a coffee shop here in Dubai. It's called Homebrew Coffee, so shout out to her. Anyways, I just attached some of her coffee stuff because it's the first one that I thought of. So let's see how it redesigns her shop. Okay, so that just finished, and obviously now we're getting a much more consistent design system. I actually quite like this. It looks pretty nice. Anya, maybe you want to watch this and implement the new design system here. But either way, you guys get the idea, right? Give a reference. I'm not sharing anything that's rocket science, but I want to show you the difference when you just start from scratch versus when you actually implement some of these very basic prompts. Now, what I want to do next is kind of just fun because I want to see how good the video generation is here. But we have a bunch of examples, right? So I'm just going to give it kind of a detailed prompt explaining how it can create a cool video out of the samples it's now created for itself. And I want to see if we can get a short, like 5-10 second long promotional video promoting Homebrew. Okay, so I just gave it a pretty decent prompt here where I said, you are an award-winning commercial director who creates cinematic 10-second brand ads for premium coffee brands, right? Your job is to create a 10-second vertical promo video for my coffee shop. The reference is the images you just created. Use the reference and transform it into a high-end cinematic promo. Keep the real interior, all of this kind of stuff, okay? So I just gave it, a nice structured laid out prompt. I used, GenSpark actually to help me make this prompt. Anyways, let's pass it here and see what we get now that we have the reference images. Okay, so it's been a second here, and this is the video that it came up with. I mean, you guys can let me know what you think of it in the comments.
Just one more pour. Perfect bloom.
This place feels like home.
So, I would say that's pretty decent for like the 2 or 3 minutes it took to generate this. I think we could definitely improve it. And I didn't give it the best prompt in the world, but you get the idea, and it was able to actually create this video, which is pretty interesting. So anyways, let's move to the next example. So the next pattern to dive into is called the constraint box. Now, the general concept is that counterintuitively, when you give AI more constraints, you actually produce a better and more creative results. So effectively, what you want to do is define a box in which the AI needs to operate inside of. Now, the reason this works is that without constraints, AI usually gives a lot of generic outputs. When you give constraints, you force specificity, and you also force creativity within those specific constraints. So let me show you an example of what the pattern looks like. So here's the format. Create something with these constraints. It must, constraint 1, it cannot, constraint 2, it should fit whatever format, style, length, whatever you want, and the audience is some specific audience. Now, again, not rocket science, but when you combine this with some of the other patterns that I showed you, you can get a really strong result. So rather than doing something like, analyze this data, right, and then giving it something like your bank statement, you want to do something like the following. Okay, so what I've done is I just uploaded actually some randomized data, which is kind of based off my profit and loss that I had last year for my company. And I said create a dashboard style revenue analysis using my full year revenue data set with these constraints. It must surface only the 3 most actionable insights. It must visualize clear month over month trends. It must automatically flag statistical anomalies or unusual spikes and drops, right? And I want this in plain English so a non-technical CEO could understand. It cannot, right? So I'm telling it things that it shouldn't do. It should be formatted like this. I'm giving a lot of different constraints so that I'm putting it inside of this box where it can be creative within those constraints, but not much more. So anyways, let's run this and let's see the analysis we get. Okay, so just completed the dashboard here. Keep in mind, these numbers are randomized, so don't read into this too much. Anyways, point is we have total revenue, average monthly revenue, margin, all of this kind of stuff, quick executive summary. We have some monthly trends in terms of how much was made in these different categories, again, because it's modeling it based off of what I had in my chart. Go anomalies and risk, and you can see like the kind of revenue change through different months, different quarters, whatever, totals based on these different fields. And then we have the raw data, right, where you can go through and you can see all of the different amounts populated inside of here. Cool. Okay, so that is pretty much it. Just wanted to show you that that is possible. And this is kind of a cool thing in GenSpark. It has this AI Sheets feature. So that's it, guys. I am going to wrap up the video here. If you want a more advanced video on this concept where I go through a lot more prompts, a lot more strategies, mix and combine these together, definitely let me know in the comments down below, and I will see you in another video.